Jason Crow here with a tutorial on how to create a height map in Photoshop that can be used in Unity. The first step is going to be to go into Unity and create a terrain by clicking Terrain and Create Terrain. This brings it up in the left on the hierarchy and in the middle Scene view. But then what I'm going to do is click Terrain and go down to Set Resolution. And I'm going to set my terrain width to 500, the height to 200, and the length to 500. You can also notice that the height map resolution is 513. That's going to be the size of the Photoshop document that I get to in a little bit. But then I will set resolution and shrink down my screen. By double clicking on terrain, I can zoom into my terrain. Then we're going to go to Game Object and Create Other to create a directional light that goes on our scene. By using the Orbit tool, we can drag the light back and forth, creating the dark and light areas. But I'm just going to leave it here right now and click back onto my terrain, because the next step is to go over to the inspector on the right, down in the terrain script, and choose the paint texture. Then we're going to go to edit texture and add a texture, which opens up this new menu on the left hand side, and we're going to select a texture, and this one is going to be applied to the whole terrain. I'm just going to go with the grass rock here, double click it, and add. Now the terrain's all prepped and we're ready to go into Photoshop. Now in Photoshop, I'm going to go up to File, New, and I'm just going to title this my Unity height map. And then I've already set my width and height to 513, which was the height map resolution of my Unity file. I'm going to make sure that I'm in grayscale mode and my background contents can remain white. I'm going to click OK and create it. And my first step is to go to Filter, down to Render, and click Clouds. And apologies for this, my computer doesn't like running Photoshop from the Anywhere apps. The next step is to go up to Filter, and we're going to Liquify. This brings up a separate window, and all you have to do is click and drag, and it will start smearing the image around as if it was liquefied. And I'm just clicking in the darks and the light zones here, and pulling them and making nice smooth edges. You can do the same, you can try and create patterns in it. But for mine, I'm just pulling at those very lights and the very darks. All of the clouds should be smoothed away. And when you're happy with your final result, you can go over and click OK. And that's going to apply the transformations directly to your image. What we're going to do next is go up to File. And then we're going to Save As. And we're going to choose our file selection here. I'm saving it as Unity height map, but it's very important to change the format down to RAW. So you click Photoshop RAW and save it. In this menu, you can keep the existing settings and click OK. And that's going to save a file and we can go back to Unity. Next, I'm going to click up to Terrain and import height map RAW. I'm going to select the height map that I just created in Photoshop and import it. And it's going to bring up a window here, and all the width and height and terrain sizes should match my settings, so I'll import it. And that applies the transformation from the grayscale height map directly to my Unity terrain. And as you can see, some of the edges are a little jagged. So my next step is to go over to my terrain script on the right and choose the smooth height brush. I choose one of the larger brushes, and I'm going to click and drag over top of my terrain to smooth out some of the rough edges. Now that I've smoothed over most of my terrain with the brush, I'm going to go down and take a closer look at some of the details. To do this, I'm going to go to my assets, to my character controllers, and I'm going to drag and drop a first-person controller right onto my terrain. Once it's down there, I'm able to go down by double-clicking on the first-person controller and make any adjustments to make sure he's above the terrain. Now that the character controller is placed properly, I'll have a first-person camera that I can control and move around the map. I can do so by clicking the play button. I am able to move around the terrain that I created with the grayscale height map from Photoshop. You can now see how this is an effective method of creating a diverse terrain in a matter of minutes. Experiment with other effects to create a variety of landscapes. And don't forget to like and subscribe if this tutorial was helpful.